And then there's two real key points when you're roasting. There's what's called first crack, and it's actually a chemical reaction where the bean is almost like popcorn. It's cracking or popping. You can hear that, and the energy is being released. In the roasting process, you need to get at least to that first crack, and then you're into like a light roast. If you go, a minute or so past that, then you're getting into a medium roast. And then there's another crack called the second crack, and it's an even more intense explosion. Once you get to there, you're getting into your darker roast, and then beyond that, you're getting really dark. You keep going, you're going to have a bean that is burned.
Welcome back to Winning at Work. It's season 3, the podcast for the food and beverage and CPG world. I'm Jennifer Lee, Tony's new marketing sidekick and creative guru. I'll attempt to keep him on track as we discover the ideas and strategies behind all these different, better, and special brands.
Oh, good luck keeping me on track, but I am really stoked to have you on the team, Jennifer. Your background in marketing and SEO and socials. We are going to have so much fun this year. We're going to be discovering the new brands here in 2023. It's all about functional, good for you, lifestyle brands. Those are trending. Those are the products that are gaining market share and really pulling away from those old legacy brands. We're going to have each and every one of those brands down on the podcast to talk to us, to share their ideas, their inspiration. So you, the entrepreneur, so you, the food and beverage and CPG professional, can take these new ideas in and incorporate them into your business and into your life.
Oh my gosh, Tony, I'm seriously so excited. I feel like I learn so much just from listening to older episodes.
Well, that's why we're here. And if this is your first time here, I would recommend, go back, take the 5-episode challenge. Pick a brand, pick a CEO, an entrepreneur, dive in, listen to what it is that they're teaching us. If you love the content, subscribe. We hope you're along with us for the journey each and every week.
By the way, do you have a favorite brand in your market you would love for us to amplify on this national platform? Reach out to us on LinkedIn. And stay tuned for this week's episode. Hey, it's Jennifer. We get it. Everyone hates hiring. Inspired by his guest, Tony created a novel talent acquisition program that attracts the hidden candidate market, the 70% of people that are not actively applying to jobs. Click on the Attract link in the show notes to watch a demo.
Welcome to Winning at Work. It is Tony, and I'm like a lot of Americans, well, frankly, anyone in the world. Coffee is a ritual for the morning. And many people will switch off of caffeinated, they'll switch to decaf in the afternoon at some point because they just want to keep that good feeling and that vibe going. Anywhere you go in America, you are going to see a single coffee shop. And it's kind of maybe unique to that town, kind of unique to that culture, but they've not been able to break through, open up other stores. Now, me personally, my wife is from Michigan. So I have come to fall in love with Michigan. Michigan summers are amazing. I haven't been up there in the winter. Maybe that's a different story. I've seen photos and videos of ice caves on Lake Michigan, some really, really cool things. But my experience has always been Michigan is just, in certain parts, it's, sparsely settled, beautiful country, and really, really quaint towns that are kind of built in and around the lakes. And it's just a great vibe, and you can always find great coffee up there. And recently I had the pleasure of discovering 5 Lakes Coffee, and I've got Jared Smith with me today. He is the co-founder. 5 Lakes, as you might imagine, they are based in Michigan, and they have 8 coffee shops. So to me, I see this as a regional play. They own their own roasting operation or roastery, and currently they are selling bags, merchandise, K-cups. They've got their own e-com site. Jared, welcome in. Good to have you.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. I appreciate the opportunity to just sit here and talk about 5 Lakes Coffee. And yeah, it's a little cold up here in Michigan, but it's starting to warm up a little bit. We have hope.
Is spring just starting to peek through every now and then, I guess, here in
Yeah,
late March.
we get a few days where it pops up to maybe 50 degrees, and then next thing you know, like for a couple of weeks, it was kind of nice during the week, and then Friday it snowed 5 or 6 inches, and then that melted, and then the next Friday it snowed another 5 or 6 inches. So it just kind of comes and goes, but it's definitely trending in the right direction at this point. So we're excited for some warm weather for sure.
But yeah, I mean, Jared, you really have done something that really thousands of these single location coffee shops have not accomplished, and you have already kind of broken through. You have reached a point of scale. You are now a regional player. I'm really kind of interested to see how you've kind of, progressed, got it to that point. Tell us about, the Five Lakes coffee brand and the vibe that you've created in your retail stores.
Well, it's hard to believe, but it's been this April actually will be 21 years since my brother and I, we were actually in the construction business together, building homes, and we had the opportunity to actually at first we partnered with another guy in a business that was just chocolate, and we got involved in that, and then he real quick decided he didn't really want to do it. And my brother and I always, part of our routine, like you said earlier, was we're going to the work site was to stop in and get a coffee. And that was just kind of the part of our day. So the first thing we did when we took over was added coffee. So we, at first we were driving about, it was always real important to us to have the best product, the best coffee. So we were driving an hour away to purchase fresh roasted coffee for that first year. And then after the first year, we switched and said, hey, kind of tired of driving an hour. We wanted to be able to learn more. So we bought our first roaster after the first year and started roasting. And one of the cool things that we learned early on, as we were just, because it was just my brother and I, as we started, we were working out in the coffee shops. The cool thing was coffee. What we really figured out really quick was coffee actually brought people together. So we were the first coffee shop in our small town of Sturgis, Michigan. Pretty small community, about, I'd say, probably 9,000 to 10,000 right in Sturgis, and then a little more as you go out further. But we were the first true coffee shop in town, I believe, and just learned how that coffee brought people together. So early on, we just really enjoyed that relationship part of it, getting to know our customers, building relationships, getting to know them, and then seeing people come in of all ages, all different backgrounds, whatever it was. They came in, they got a cup of coffee, and they would sit down and they would spend time talking to each other. And that's just kind of where it got started. We started to fall in love with the process of roasting and learning about coffee and bringing that great cup of coffee to everybody. And then that relationship part of it was a bonus that we really enjoyed. So that's kind of where we started and got going. And then from there, yes, 21 years of just trial and error and learning. I'm not sure we can.
Well, I'm going to get into a part of that. I know obviously it's a 30-minute podcast.
Yeah,
we can't get through it all, but
right.
But you touched on the roasting, and listen, we've got foodies and coffee nerds that love to listen. So let's get a little nerdy. Just explain the roasting process a little bit for us.
So roasting. So you're working with green. When you first get your green coffee beans, they're actually green. They're not brown at all. A lot of people probably at this point have learned that. We have them imported. They come from around the world, and we're typically working with specialty grade coffee. So it's just the highest end of coffee, and we work with an importer, and then we bring in coffees from every region. So we bring them in from Indonesia, like Sumatra, Papua New Guinea. We bring them in from Africa. So we have Tanzanian, Ethiopian. I won't name them all. And then we have Latin America, both South and Central American. So you bring those in, we import them. They come in a big burlap bag, just like you see in the pictures. It's a green bean. It doesn't taste good. If you tried to bite it, you might break your tooth. And then you're taking that, you're putting it in, we use what's called a drum roaster. So it's in kind of like, the best way I can describe it to people sometimes is like a cement mixer. So the green beans get dropped into that cement mixer. It's spinning. The reason for that is to keep the beans from staying in contact with that hot surface and burning. You don't want to burn the outside of the bean. And then you're introducing heat. There's different ways you can introduce hot air into that. You can use a flame. We kind of use a combination of both. And then basically, keeping it simple, I don't want to get too nerdy, but you're basically cooking those coffee beans and roasting them. And then it's just a matter of, you can't roast too slow. You can't roast too fast. You don't want the bean to bake real slow. It'll have a weird taste to it. And then there's two real key points when you're roasting. There's what's called first crack. And it's actually a chemical reaction where the bean is almost like popcorn. It's cracking or popping. You can hear that, and the energy is being released. In the roasting process, you need to get at least to that first crack, and then you're into like a light roast. If you go, a minute or so past that, then you're getting into a medium roast. And then there's another crack called the second crack, and it's an even more intense explosion. And you can hear that really cracking when it's kind of a lot like popcorn. And then once you get to there, you're getting into your darker roast. And then beyond that, you're getting really dark roast. And then you keep going, you're going to have a bean that is burnt. So you want to,
if you keep going, you got Starbucks.
Yeah, right. So
like, I don't know how to describe food, maybe the way maybe a critic would, but to me, it had so much flavor, and it was really smooth. And there was literally, like, the finishing flavor was just the opposite of so much of that store-bought and some of that burnt. What's happening? Why are so many of those coffees burnt or bitter at the end? Are they just cooking them, burning them too long?
I would say there's probably two factors to that. Yeah, one is just their roasting. It could be, I don't like to talk negative, but maybe they don't have as high quality of a bean to start with. So if you start with a coffee bean that's a lower quality, you're not going to have the opportunity to get as much flavor. So maybe they're roasting it a little longer to just get more of a consistent flavor. The quality isn't as good. So if you roast any coffee bean, I always think of toast. If you toast two different breads that taste different, lightly, you're going to taste the difference. But if you keep toasting them until they're almost burnt, you can hardly tell the difference in the flavor.
I think you just answered my question. I think what I have just discovered is that for some of these larger, really, really large coffee companies, they probably are buying, they're probably not buying the premium beans. And then if they over roast them, they can kind of overcome some of that, inconsistency. And that's why you get that little bitterness at the end. Whereas if you go with a really high grade, originally sourced product, then you can really focus on all the different flavors and notes. And because that's what I tasted.
That's definitely part of it. If you start with the inferior ingredients, you can only get it so good. And then the other factor is, they're roasting, they're probably shipping it to like a warehouse type situation. And then it's sitting there, and then it's getting distributed out to either a grocery store, their distribution system, and then, then getting in the grocery store, sitting on the shelf. So by the time you actually get that bag of coffee, it started, because there's oils in coffee, and oils over time would go rancid. They won't make you sick, but they affect the flavor. So that's always been a vision of ours, is we roast for all our coffee shops. We roast fresh every week. We deliver it every Thursday or Friday. We get our orders on Monday, we roast and then deliver. So they're always getting coffee that's been roasted within, a week or two. So it's super fresh. And then online, same thing. We roast those coffees to order and ship them out right away. So you're getting a fresh product. So I'd say those are the two factors, what you're starting with, and then also the freshness of the roast.
Well, one final kind of nerdy question here, and then I want to get into your business model a little bit more to understand how you've done this. Why is it that a lightly roasted coffee tends to have more caffeine than after the second crack?
It's basically just, you're cooking that bean more. So a little more of that caffeine is getting burnt out of the coffee bean the further you roast it. The difference, I would say the difference is negligible. It's not enough to make a huge difference, but there is a difference, but it's not a huge difference.
Well, one of your brands, though, or one of your lines actually has extra caffeine. So how do you manage that?
So that's our Angry Brew. That's actually one of our top sellers. Sometimes it's our number one seller, if not number two. But we wanted something that was natural, that didn't add, some kind of outside source. So we actually use, you've probably heard of Arabica beans.
Yes.
That's kind of your top grade typically. And then there's a Robusta bean. So they're two different species of coffee. And the Robusta bean actually has almost twice as much, or even more than twice as much caffeine as the Arabica. So what we did is we took found a Robusta that we liked the flavor and it was still high quality, and combined that with a Arabica bean. We actually sent it we did some different blends, different percentages, different roast levels, set it into a lab to get tested for the caffeine content. And once we found one that tasted good and hit the caffeine levels that we wanted, then that was our Angry Brew. So
that's
really
how
excited.
you make it angry.
Yeah. And we're actually coming out, it's kind of, that's a little darker roast, but we're getting ready to introduce Happy Brew, which is going to be our lighter roast of the same highly caffeinated coffee. So we're going to have a Happy Brew for those who are happy, and the Angry Brew for those who are a little angry out there.
That's just a fun play on it, have a, kind of keep the vibe going with some fun coffee names. So walk us through just what your current business model is today and your different points of distribution, how you're getting, your products out to market.
Yeah. So, we started almost 21 years ago, started in our small hometown of Sturgis, Michigan. And we always just had a vision and always wanted to take this product, freshly roasted coffee, to more people. Also wanted to, we've always tried our best to be focused on the customer experience and the customer having a good time. We wanted to give that to as many people as possible. So we've always wanted to open more coffee shops. And actually early on, was kind of a learning experience. We opened a coffee shop kind of further out, about 2 hours from us, in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And then we opened one in Lansing, Michigan, which is about an hour and a half. And that was a real learning experience, because what we learned is we reached out too far and we weren't prepared and capable to actually service those coffee shops and make sure that those customers were getting the same service that we were giving. And in the end, those coffee shops ended up closing. And then we came back, just withdrew a little bit closer to our own hometown, about 35 minutes away, and started expanding more of like a spoke and wheel type expansion, where we could make sure that we could actually service that, make sure we get that coffee there fresh every week, make sure we can, help run those stores and make sure the customers are getting that quality of service and all those things. And also our managers, so we're just trying to take it. Now we've kind of withdrawn, but now we've gone back out and we're at 8 stores. We've actually opened one of those as a franchise location. But that's allowed us to provide the service for them, make sure that we can service them and help them do the best that they can do, versus going out too far, too fast. And then you almost build too fast where you can't, you're not capable of providing that great service, great product to the consumer.
So in your stores, I imagine they can buy bags there. Obviously, that's kind of one of your retail outlets, correct?
Correct. Yep. You can buy the cup brewed and ready to go, or we have 12-ounce bags at the store, fresh roasted for purchase too. Yeah.
Have you dabbled at all in like grocery or club, trying to get, a little more kind of mainstream out of the coffee shop?
So we have a little bit. We do some wholesale stuff. So we're in it's a small university, Trine University, just over the border in Indiana, but we're in all of we're in their cafeteria, and they have a coffee shop. We're up in a casino just up in Michigan a little bit, Firekeepers Casino. So they use our coffee in their coffee shop. We're in some small retail stores. At this point, we haven't really focused on retail. We've really focused on just growing our stores, doing the online sales, but we're kind of been toying more with that. We're going to Made in Michigan Expo next month, and we're kind of excited about that. We're starting a project. We're kind of excited about working with Michigan State University actually on a canned product. So like a ready to drink coffee drink. So we're kind of excited.
That's a really hot market right now, Jared. Their RTD category is through the roof.
Yeah, so we're excited about that. We're working with Michigan State. They actually have a production facility and they work with companies and help go through that process. So we've just started talking to them and waiting for a proposal from them, but we're real excited about that too.
Well, so you have your stores really become your retail outlet, and then you have just sounds like you're dabbling a little bit in food service, but I would think food service would be a great play for you because you can really control that quality because you have your own roasting facility there. So the restaurants, the hotels, etc., they can provide the absolute best coffee. It's just a matter of, do you have the capacity to in the sales, ability to get in and close those deals?
Yeah. So like I said, we haven't really focused on that. We've just kind of let it happen. And then now we're just toying more and making a little more focus on that retail possibility, maybe getting into some grocery stores, maybe getting into more wholesale accounts. We want to take it slow. The quality is important to us. We never want to grow so fast that we aren't able to give the quality that we're used to giving to our customers. So that's really important to us. We want to grow, but not too fast.
Yeah. Well, that's wise. Well, Jared, take us back to when, you just had the one store. You've kind of touched on it, how you expanded out and then came back, but let's start back from the redo. Talk to us about just the lesson you learned, as you were expanding, as you were scaling and becoming more regional. What were some of the big challenges, obstacles, hurdles that you had to overcome, that you were facing? Because this is exactly what the kind of small food entrepreneur is dealing with when they open their first shop, and you've kind of already gone down that path for them.
Yeah, I would say, you do have to be willing to, honestly, you have to be willing to work a lot, but more importantly than that is you have to be willing to trust people, because in the end, you can't do it all. And if you have that personality where you have to have your hand on everything, it's really hard to expand. A lot of people, I think they expand out, they open maybe multiple coffee shops or retail stores, but they've got to have their hand on everything, and they just overwhelm themselves with work, and they're not willing to let go. They don't trust people. And then at some point they just get overwhelmed. They've got overworked, and then they start to draw back. So what we found is you have to be willing to trust people. You have to be willing to be wrong, and just admit when you've made a mistake. I think we kind of have a motto that we've learned over the years. We're either winning and I think we stole this from somebody else, we're either winning or we're learning. So we make mistakes. That's okay. We're learning something out of that. We've learned a lot in the last 21 years. The last 2 years, we've learned a lot because there's been all those challenges with COVID and different issues like that. But as long as you're winning, or as long as you're learning, you're actually getting better. And as you come through those challenges, you're going to be more prepared to do a better job. But I think the biggest thing is just, you got to trust your team members. You got to give out responsibility and let those people work and do their thing without, I guess, micromanaging them, maybe is the word I'm thinking of.
Well, it has to be difficult when you're looking at a expansion and opening up a new retail outlet, the money that you have to put in to develop it, to build it, to put in the equipment. And then on top of that, you have to go out and hire. You have to hire, do you bring in general managers to run each of the stores, or can you have like one regional GM? How does that work from a headcount perspective?
Yeah, so at this point with 8 stores, we have a manager at every store, and then usually we try to have 2 to 3 assistant managers underneath them that are helping them with their responsibilities so that they're not overwhelmed. We also have, we've hired in the last few years a store director, so he's kind of working with all the managers and keeping up that communication, because that's another, I would say communication's the other big challenge. As you start to get more and more stores, it becomes a challenge. How do you communicate? How do you get to all the stores so they don't feel like they're out on an island by themselves? So we've hired that store director and given that responsibility to him, as getting into the stores, communicating with the managers on a regular basis. So that's been big. We've hired a gal that does training for us. So she goes into the stores and she'll spend a week at a store, and she'll make sure that, everything's being done the same, focus on customer service, helping the managers with whatever challenges that they have at the time, just kind of helping them through those processes. And then after a week, she'll go to another store, help them, and over a few months, she'll hit every store for a week or more, and then she'll start over and go back to the stores.
Rinse and repeat.
Yep. So just helping those managers, helping make sure we're still doing everything the same, make sure we're focused on the customer. That's a big challenge. It was easy early on when it was just my brother Paul and I when we were in the store, because we love people and we love coffee. So it was easy to try to give people a great experience because we had fun. It was a lot of fun, to be honest with you. One of my favorite things to actually do is just to work in the coffee shop, make drinks, talk to people, build that relationship. I mean, we have customers that we've been friends with for almost 21 years. I mean, we've gone to the movies with them. We've hung out. They've helped us, even open coffee shops just for the fun of it. So it's just been a lot of fun over the years.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. But I imagine as the business gets bigger and more complex and the administrative responsibilities increase, your ability to go in and just make a latte for someone and sit down is more and more diminished.
Yeah, I don't get to do it as often as I used to, but I still, once in a while, I'll be in one of our stores and it'll be real busy and they'll need some help and I'll jump in. And usually I got to try to stay out of the way because sometimes I slow them down. But if I can help, if I can run the register, I'll run the register. I can make the drinks, but I don't have the recipes memorized as good as I used to. So sometimes a little slower than.
Oh, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Well, listen, maybe you need to sit in on that training, once a week, just sit down and get refreshed.
Yes, that's probably a good idea. So it comes back to me after a little practice, but when you're in a rush, it can be a little bit of a challenge for sure.
Well, it's muscle memory, of course. It's muscle memory. One of the other big trends that we're seeing in coffee, and I should ask you what trends you're seeing. I'll tell you one that I've seen is, cold brew. How do you guys respond to what happens in the marketplace in the world of coffee?
Well, yeah, that's something that we've learned. I mean, you always have to be willing to adapt. It's easy to become, I guess, emotionally attached to maybe an idea you had that you think was great. So one thing I've learned over the years is just there's sometimes you have to either get rid of something or that maybe you've emotionally attached to for whatever reason. Maybe it was just your thing that you developed, a particular drink or something. Maybe it's not as popular and you have to be willing to let that go. A lot of people just get emotionally attached to something they're not willing to change. And then times change. Maybe something's not as popular. Like now, a big trend, cold brew, which we do. I'll talk a little bit about that, but ice drinks. Like right now, everybody's drinking, even in the winter, it's crazy. Even in the winter up here in Michigan, I don't know the statistics exactly, but it might be 50% iced and frozen drinks, even when it's cold out. And I mean, I like my coffee hot every morning to start the day, so that's a huge trend. People are just drinking those iced and frozen drinks all the time. But we do offer a cold brew. It's a really good coffee, pretty strong, but yet very smooth. So we do that at all our coffee shops. So I think just being willing to change with the times, don't get emotionally attached to something that you think is most important.
Have any local breweries come to you and try to do any partnership with coffee and alcohol? Because there's a lot of that infusion happening now.
We haven't. There was a brewery that had opened in Sturgis a long time ago, and we had talked to them about doing a coffee flavored beer. And then they actually this is quite a few years ago, but they actually had their place catch on fire and burn down, and they just decided not to open back up. Since then, really we're not closely located to any breweries as far as our headquarters. So we really haven't had that conversation.
Yeah, because I just know those are kind of the two big trends right now in coffee is cold, nitro, and of course, kind of infusing it with some kind of alcohol. Any other kind of lessons that you had learned through the startup and kind of expansion into other stores, challenges maybe with, I don't know, banking, or not that we're going to go into that in detail, but, it's expensive to do that. How how you manage that, what that process looked like, or just the challenge of maybe trying to attract people to a small growing company?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's trying to think of some specific things. One, I would say just thinking of like expanding and your systems. It's easy. You need systems, whether it's a recipe manual or a training manual. We do need those things, but you want to make sure that they actually work. Because sometimes I think we get caught up in making systems that are just systems. We just have the system because we got to have a system, but maybe it doesn't work very well. So that's something I've learned is like, we need those systems, but if they don't work, we got to be willing to adapt, change the systems, work through the systems. Maybe something that I thought worked when we actually take it out into the actual coffee shop and it doesn't work. I've got to be willing to listen to my manager. I've got to be willing to listen to our trainers. If I've developed something that doesn't work, it doesn't work. So let's fix it. Let's change it. I don't need to be emotionally attached or feel, upset just because I'm the owner or something. That's one thing. Like in the coffee shop, I've always told people when I used to train baristas all the time, like if I make a mistake, if you see me make a mistake, just tell me, because all I really care about is the customer getting what they want. In the end, it doesn't matter that I made a mistake or, I don't care. So that's something, just being willing to be wrong and don't worry about that. Don't be upset because that's okay.
Well, what do you think the future holds for your brand? You've already kind of established yourself there in that area of Michigan and then south of you. What do you think the future holds, and how do you plan on kind of executing on that plan?
Yeah, so we want to continue expanding. Don't want to get, at this point, we don't want to reach out too far. We want to work within our area where we already have a coffee shop and then build on that and build out. So we actually have one more coffee shop planned this year for sure. And it's actually in our hometown of Sturgis. We've never had a drive-through location here. We were started in downtown. So we're really excited to actually have a drive-through, because that's certainly a trend, especially after COVID, is people like going through the drive-through, to have that access and quickly. So we're excited about adding that store. And then we're in, I don't know if anybody's familiar. I'm sure people will be familiar with like Fort Wayne, Indiana, but we have a location there. So that's our next goal, is to open, I would say 2 to 3 more locations in Fort Wayne. Hoping for one this year. I don't know if that'll work out if we find a location, and then we would just build on that. So that would be, then we're, like we talked about earlier, just going and potentially building out in some retail areas. And we're going to that expo to try to meet up with some different retail people and learn just a little more about that process and how it works, see where we can go from there. And then the other focus would just be, we love fresh coffee. We are regional, but with online now and shipping, we can get that fresh roasted coffee to people in a roasted, ordered to order, roasted, and to their house within, just a few days. So we want to get as many people that high quality, fresh roasted coffee to them as we can.
Well, Jared, that might be just a great place for us to wrap up. I think I've finished like 2 cups of coffee talking to you, so I think I'll start getting the jitters if I go any longer. What's the best way for people to find you and kind of reach out and give this Angry Brew a try? Angry Brew.
Yeah, I'd say the easiest way is to go to our website. It's 5lakes.com, and that's spelled out. And then there you can order coffee. We roast it to order and then ship it. You can also, on that website, you'll see our location. So if you're close enough to one of our locations, you can find a location. Click on that. It'll have a map and our hours, and they can figure out how to get to one of our stores if they're within our region.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Jared, I mean, congratulations on, the slow, steady, consistent growth. I respect someone who takes the time to learn, do it right, and not to overextend. And as you said, we say it here, failure is first attempt in learning, and that's really what it sounds like you kind of embody that as well. Well,
thank you, Tony. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and talk to anybody out there who listens, and it's been fun. And yeah, it's been a good time. Thank you.
Was this your first podcast?
Yeah, this is my first time. So yeah, yeah.
Oh boy. So now we're going to have a podcast expert here coming up.
Yeah.
All it takes, you do one, and then you're going to be making the rounds.
Now I know what I'm doing. So
you heard him here first, everybody. You heard Jared first on Winning at Work. In all seriousness, it's great chatting with you. Always great to meet another great Midwesterner from Michigan. It's a great area. If you guys have not spent any time up there in the summer, I highly recommend take a vacation up in Michigan. And as you're driving up, stop into Five Lakes and get a cup of coffee on your way up to Sleeping Bear Dunes.
Yes, I agree. It's great up here.
It is awesome. We'll talk to you soon, Jared. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it.